the Fed signaling that rate cuts are coming, but they're not imminent. Well, what the heck does that mean? I'll tell you, I have no use for this Federal Reserve. I have not had any use for this Federal Reserve. I mean, we're going back a ways here, okay? We are going back a ways. But I can really pinpoint this and tell you, I was just underwhelmed by Jay Powell and his colleagues during the thick of 2020. Now, don't get me wrong. During March 2020, you get the federal government shutting down everything. Yeah, every state closing down. I get it. You had to do what you had to do at that moment in time, right? So that's when you go in, you flood the market with helicopter money. And so you just say, okay, we're going to print and you're all going to be fine. We're not going to have a run on the banks. Yeah. Okay, fine. But then you kept printing and printing and printing and printing and printing and printing and still printing. And then Joe Biden comes in and he gives a third stimulus check to everybody because, woo, I'm president now. Let me hand out some more cash. And then you got Congress saying, well, let's spend some more. And before you know it, we got debt levels unlike anything we have ever seen, ladies and gentlemen. And what does the Fed do? It keeps on printing. Come on. Jay, you should know better. You should know better. I mean, like, hey, I just was like here beating the drum, saying every single day, you can't do this. You can't do this. It's not going to end well. And I hate to tell you, but I'm never going to steer you wrong. I was right. Quite right. Very right. I don't want to be this right. I want them to do the right thing. I want them to understand it. Larry Summers, finally, looking like a genius because he actually took to the podium and said, yeah, you know what? The Federal Reserve is going to be in a little trouble here. We're going to have a little too much inflation because I'm telling you, when the economy's back online, woof, poof, you're going to have big problems. And that's exactly what we have had. And you just have to look at those inflation charts. I mean, Biden's got a gigantic mountain of inflation there. Well, the Federal Reserve came out today and they said that they are signaling that they're basically eventually going to cut rates, but it's not happening as soon as you think. So I don't know what people were thinking. I mean, how crazy can you be to think that you're going to get rate cuts? I mean, that's like delusional, frankly. I was actually talking with the woman who helps me with investing this morning. And I was just like, we were talking about the bond market, actually. And I'm like, I still think I got time, right? Like, I'm not in any rush because I do feel that interest rates, actually, in my view, are either steady or they're going higher because I'm worried about inflation. All right. Well, some people, they're holding on to this idea that maybe Jay Powell is so desperate to keep his job that he's going to just give Biden whatever he wants. And therefore is going to say, hey, here you go. Another rate cut. We're just going to get a little more stimulus to the economy ahead of the election. Let me tell you, like, that is like a terrible thing to do. Like, just a terrible, terrible, terrible thing to do. It's like you're just eating more and more and more sugar and you have no nutrients and your economy stumbles as a result. Anyway, just to get you up to speed on this, the Fed is, as I said, formally shifting its interest rate outlook, providing what one might say is a little bit of flexibility for itself to possibly lower rates in the coming months if, in fact, it believes that inflation hazards have fully receded, which they haven't, okay? Like, they just haven't. So I want to share from the policy statement in which the Fed said, quote, the risks to achieving its employment and inflation goals are moving into better balance. Okay, this is what we call Fed speak, right? Translation, there's still risks out there, but we think it's better than it used to be. And then it outlined how its changes to its economic outlook could prompt, quote, adjustments to the target range. Okay, so they want to have their cake and eat it too. That's normal Fed stuff. The committee, they write, does not expect it will be appropriate to reduce the target range until it has gained greater confidence that inflation is moving steadily towards 2%. Yeah, all right. Finally, the headline. Cut to the chase, guys. All right, it's not like inflation is just not coming down enough. I mean, I just don't see it happening. I don't know who thinks they're going to get a rate cut. I'm thinking like rate hike, all right? Like, and they don't want to do that ahead of the election. I get it. But, the markets are trying to figure this all out. And so consequently, they're like, okay, well, we're not going to get that cut. Oh, darn it. And that's why they traded down today. Donald Trump has been weighing in on this. He's he said that he thinks the reason the market's been going up is because people think that he's going to be elected. I actually think it has more to do with, sorry, Donald. I think it has, I mean, they could factor in on the margin. And by the way, it does actually matter. I don't want to discount that because foreign policy, et cetera, tax policy, economic policy, all these things do matter in terms of market outlook. But in terms of the very much the here and now, I think a lot of people were hoping and praying that they were going to get this. They were going to get this rate cut. And you know what? They're not going to get it. So they're like little spoiled children. It wasn't so much of a temper tantrum, but it could, you know, it could come. It could. They call them taper tantrums.